and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and this week we are talking about books that take place on school campuses. Jill's rocking her UW Oshkosh apparel. I have Hogwarts. I could not go as far back as my UW Eau Claire stuff from when I graduated from there, so it's Hogwarts for me, but I'll kick it off to Jill for her first pick on a book that takes place on a school campus.
All right. My first book is Again But Better by Christine Riccio. Shane has been doing college all wrong. Pre-med, stellar grades, happy parents, sounds ideal, but Shane's made zero friends, goes home every weekend, and romance, what's that? Her life has been dorm, dining hall class, repeat. Time's a-ticking, and she needs a change. There's nothing like moving to a new country to really mix things up. Shane signs up for a semester abroad in London. She's going to right all her college mistakes, make friends, pursue boys, and find adventure. Easier said than done. She's soon faced with the complicated realities of living outside her bubble, and when self-doubt sneaks in, her new life starts to fall apart. Shane comes to find that with the right amount of courage and determination, one can conquer anything. Throw in some fate and a touch of magic, and the possibilities are endless. So, if you're doing college wrong, do it again.
My first pick is a book called Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This was just published last year in 2020. It's a story about a dangerously curious young undergrad whose rebelliousness leads her to discover a shocking secret involving an exclusive circle of students and the dark truth beneath her school's promise of prestige. Catherine House is a school of higher learning like no other. Hidden deep in the woods of rural Pennsylvania, this crucible of reformist liberal arts study with its experimental curriculum, wildly selective admissions policy, and formidable endowment has produced some of the world's best minds. Prize-winning authors, artists, inventors, Supreme Court justices, and presidents. For those lucky few selected, tuition, room and board are all free. But acceptance comes with a price. Students are required to give the house 3 years, summers included, completely removed from the outside world. Family, friends, television, music, even their clothing must be left behind. In return, the school promises its grads a future of sublime power and prestige, and that they can become anything or anyone they desire. So you have to check this book out and see how this all turns out. Catherine House.
My next one's a little spooky. The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. This actually introduced me to this author, and if you like kind of spooky stuff, she's good with that. This one is a haunted school. In Vermont, 1950, there's a place for girls who no one wants. The troublemakers, the illegitimate, the too smart for their own good. It's called Idlewild Hall. And in the small town where it's located, there are rumors that the boarding school is haunted. 4 roommates bond over whispered fears, their budding friendship blossoming until one of them mysteriously disappears. Vermont, 2014. As much as she's tried, journalist Fiona Sheridan cannot stop revisiting the events surrounding her older sister's death. 20 years ago, her body was found lying in an overgrown fields near the ruins of Idlewild Hall. And though her sister's boyfriend was tried and convicted of murder, Fiona can't shake the suspicion that something was never right about the case. When Fiona discovers that Idlewild Hall was being restored by an anonymous benefactor, she decides to write a story about it. But a shocking discovery during renovations will link the loss of her sister to secrets that were meant to stay hidden in the past and a voice that won't be silenced. So, scary boarding school.
My next pick is a book called Talent. This was published back in 2019. In this one, Anna Brisker is a 29-year-old grad student in English at Collegiate University, and she can't seem to find her way to finish her dissertation. Her project, an intellectual history of inspiration. Her take on it, that the way writers and artists describe the moment of inspiration, that it strikes indiscriminately, that it's handed down from on high and entirely out of their control, is really just self-serving. BS, designed to elevate the artist above the rest of us. So to Anna, whose academic prowess has never before been in question, inspiration is just another name for good old-fashioned work, plain and simple. And yet for the first time, she's found herself utterly and truly uninspired. So rather than work on her thesis, she spends her days eating strawberry Pop-Tarts, wandering the streets of New Harbor in a state of perpetual procrastination. And it's amidst this unnerving time that Anna meets and strikes up a tenuous friendship with a woman named Helen Langley, a strangely compelling, free-spirited woman with a penchant for rare book forgery, who just happens to be the niece of a legendary short story writer named Frederick Langley. Freddie quickly penned 3 wildly successful collections as a young man in the 1960s, then published exactly nothing for the rest of his life. Kind of became a hermit. A possibly fatal case of writer's block, or so the critics say. As Helen confides to Anna, Freddie actually kept secret notebooks in the last years of his life that are now under lock and key at Collegiate's library, viewable at Helen's sole discretion. So inspired, uninspired, potentially re-inspired, it's a perfect case for Anna to dive into for her dissertation, and one she simply can't pass up. So as her initial fascination with Freddie Langley and his notebooks blooms into a complete obsession, Anna finds herself falling irrevocably into the criminal machinations of his sole living heir. So this kind of sounded like an interesting read to me as this girl tries to create her dissertation.
This one was on one of our lists for Irish settings before, and it's worth coming back. Normal People by Sally Rooney. At school, Connell and Marianne pretend not to know each other. He's popular and well-adjusted, star of the school soccer team, while she is lonely, proud, and intensely private. But when Connell comes to pick his mother up from her housekeeping job at Marianne's house, a strange and indelible connection grows between the two teenagers, one they are determined to conceal. A year later, they're both studying at Trinity College in Dublin. Marianne has found her feet in a new social world, while Connell hangs in the sidelines, shy and uncertain. Through their years in college, Marianne and Connell circle one another, straying towards other people and possibilities, but always magnetically, irresistibly drawn back together. Then she veers into self-destruction, and he begins a search for meaning elsewhere. Each must confront how far they are willing to go to save the other. Sally Rooney brings her brilliant psychological acuity and perfectly spare prose to a story that explores the subtleties of class, the electricity of first love, and the complex entanglements of family and friendship. So, in an Irish school.
Yeah.
You read this one?
Mm-hmm. My third pick goes back a ways. This is called Gaudy Night by Dorothy Sayers. This was actually first published back in 1935, and this copy was republished in 1995. The Dons of Harriet Vane's alma mater, the all-female Shrewsbury College, Oxford, have invited her back to attend the annual Gaudy celebrations. However, once there, the mood turns sour when someone begins a series of malicious acts, including poison pen messages, obscene graffiti, and just random vandalism. Harriet asks her old friend Whimsy to investigate. This book is actually number 10 in the Lord Peter Wimsey series. He's a sleuth in a series of detective novels and short stories by this author in which he solves mysteries, usually but not always murders. The novels are set in Britain contemporaneously with when they were written, from the early 1920s to the late 1930s. Here for us, a lot of us consider Agatha Christie the queen of crime, but there are a few other writers who certainly have a place in her court, and one of those is Dorothy Sayers. While she never achieved that same level of fame as Agatha Christie, she was widely read and respected in her time, and her character, Lord Peter Wimsey, remains one of the most famous detectives in literature. I have not read any of her books.
I've not heard of her.
No, but she sounded interesting. And when I pulled this one, I was like, book number 10. Looking back, I'm like, she has a whole series about this.
Wow. So I think this was on one of my best of 2020. My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. It also happens at a school. This book explores the psychological dynamics of a relationship between a precocious yet naive teenage girl and her magnetic and manipulative teacher. This modern-day Lolita story is thought-provoking and impossible to put down. And I would say, yes, for me, I couldn't put it down. 2000, bright, ambitious, and yearning for adulthood, 15-year-old Vanessa Wilde becomes entangled in an affair with Jacob Strain, her magnetic and guileful 42-year-old English teacher. 2017, amid the rising wave of allegations against powerful men, a reckoning is coming due. Strain has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student who reaches out to Vanessa, and now Vanessa finally finds herself facing an impossible choice. Remain silent, firm in the belief that her teenage self willingly engaged in this relationship, or redefine herself and the events of her past. But how can Vanessa reject her first love, the man who fundamentally transformed her and has been a persistent presence in her life? Is it possible that the man she loved as a teenager and who professed to worship only her may be far different from what she has always believed? So, my Dark Vanessa.
And my fourth pick for today is The Devil and Webster by Jean Ham Korelitz, published in 2017. You may be familiar with this author. She's the best-selling author of You Should Have Known and Admission. This is a twisty new novel about a college president, a baffling student protest, and some of the most hot-button issues on today's college campuses. So Naomi Roth is the first female president of Webster College, a once conservative school now known for producing fired-up progressive students. So Naomi isn't surprised or unduly alarmed when Webster students begin the fall semester with an outdoor encampment around The Stump, a traditional campus gathering place for generations of student activists. And they're protesting a popular professor's denial of tenure. A former student radical herself, Naomi admires the protesters' passion, especially when her own daughter Hannah joins their ranks. Then Omar, a charismatic Palestinian student with a devastating personal history, emerges as the group's leader, and the demonstration begins to consume Naomi's life, destabilizing Webster College from the inside out. As the crisis begins to slip beyond her control, Naomi must take increasingly desperate measures to protect her friends, her colleagues, and family from an unknowable adversary. Touching on some of the most topical and controversial concerns at the heart of our society, this riveting novel examines the fragility that lies behind who we think we are and what we think we believe. So The Devil and Webster.
Webster Hall was where I went.
Was it?
Yes. All right, Black Diamond Fall by Joseph Olshan. Excuse me. A literary mystery based and united by two real events that occurred in Middlebury College: the disappearance of a student during winter break and the vandalism of the Robert Frost homestead located on one of the outer campuses. So it's kind of based on something true, but it's fiction. Luke Flanders has just finished playing a game of pond hockey with his college roommates when he realizes he has lost something precious and goes back to the ice to find it. He never returns, and the police department in Middlebury, Vermont, are divided on their assessment of what may have happened to him. Some feel that Flanders left on his own accord and is deliberately out of touch. Others, including detectives Nick Jenkins and Helen Kennedy, suspect that harm may have come to him. As the search for Luke Flanders widens and intensifies, suspicions about the several different people, including the Middlebury College roommates and ex-girlfriend, arise. Unfortunately, Sam Solomon, an older man with whom Luke has been having a secret relationship, cannot prove his whereabouts during the hours when the younger man may have disappeared, and Solomon, too, comes under suspicion. So, a little mystery on a college campus, so that could be fun.
And my last pick is an author that we've previewed before, too, Tana French. This one is The Secret Place. This was published back in 2015. A year ago in this book, a boy was found murdered at a girls' boarding school, and the case was never solved. Detective Stephen Moran has been waiting for his chance to join Dublin's murder squad when 16-year-old Holly Mackey arrives in his office with a photo of the boy with the caption, "I know who killed him." Stephen joins with Detective Antoinette Conway to reopen the case beneath the watchful eye of Holly's father, fellow detective Frank Mackey, with the clues leading back to Holly's close-knit group of friends, to their rival clique, and to the tangle of relationships that bound them all to the murdered boy. The private underworld of teenage girls turns out to be more mysterious and more dangerous than the detectives imagined. This is the 5th book in the Dublin Murder Squad series, and like I said earlier, we previewed some of this author's work in previous Friday Read segments. She's definitely a popular author at our library. I also grabbed a couple of movies that are some of my favorites, Good Will Hunting and Mona Lisa Smiles. So not only do we have campus reads, but we got campus movies. The one book that I did, The Devil and Webster, we have the movie Admission. So lots of fun things with heading back to school.
Well, we hope we gave you some ideas on what to read next. And if you're going back to school, good luck to you. I hope you have a great year.
Yep, thanks for watching us. Next week, we're going to do kind of a fun one. We have a new computer system that's been up for a year, and we're going to pull some books that haven't circulated in the past year and ask you to tell us, save this book or put it in the book sale. So, thank you for watching. Like and share the video, and until next time, bye-bye.
See ya.